Our next speaker, he and I share something in common, which is the same first name, Jeremy, so he probably hates the same Pearl Jam song I hate. He's an IT professional from Lansing, Michigan, an explorer and watcher of the universe who recently moved to Grand Rapids. And he's going to talk about how Wanderlust brought him from creative kid to successful dad, Jeremy Stout.
Get used to my voice in the mic here. And if I would have known I could have brought a partner up, I would have found some of my homeless train jumping friends to bring along. All right, that's perfect, man. Perfect. Okay, so I'm Jeremy, and I spent my young years kind of coming from some humble beginnings, and it gave me this, I needed to know what was out there before I knew how to make a decision, what I wanted to do in my life. So I was reading the wrong books or the right books, and listening to the wrong music or the right music, depending on how you look at it. And it led me to just need to know what's out there. So that kind of led me on my first journey off to Denver, because that's where Jack Kerouac kind of started his journey. So I started off on my Amtrak, bought my ticket, and took off and said goodbye to my family, and caught a train and said, there we go. Limited resources, not sure what the future held. I had some money in my pocket that I earned from a job, and just took off and did it. So get there, discover that sense of freedom that when you're young, 19, have the whole world open to you. As long as you got that spirit, what's possible? And so I kind of got out there and did what I could and got plenty of experience. Said goodbye to my family, caught the train, saw so many beautiful things along the way. Really a young boy from northern Michigan, coming from the farmlands. When you see the Rockies topped with snow for the first time, it's an eye-opening experience. You're like, wow, wow. You know, we had a black and white TV, no cable. It was quite an eye-opener. So we get out there, climb some mountains, get some elevation, similar to our previous speakers. Get up there into the Rockies, start checking some things out, see things I've never seen before. And then I start wondering, well, how can I kind of keep this going? You know, I've kind of got an appetite now. I got a real sense of, man, you know, there's more here, there's more to see. Plus, once again, the books I'm reading are assuring me of that, assuring me that I'm on the right path. So I start kind of formulating ways that I can kind of keep this going, and I kind of come across these freight trains and the people that jump them and the people that ride them. And I'd be sitting in Oregon and just kind of sitting there, and I'd watch trains go by, and I'd see families on these trains. I'd see children, moms and dads, and I'd just sit there during the days and I'd just watch them. I'd be like, where are they going? What are they doing? What's going on? Had the sense that there was some hardship they were running from and maybe looking for better futures, better opportunities. Didn't know, wasn't quite sure, just assumed it. I was a young man. But started seeking out ways to find out how to do what they were doing. So that led me into like exploring some train yards and walking around and, you know, and the kind of seeing how the mechanics of this whole thing work. Like, how do you get around? You meet a lot of interesting people. I'm one of the lucky ones. If my son ever says he's going to jump trains, I'd probably point him in a different direction. But for me, at that time, it was something that I was very eager and ready to do. And I'm glad to report that never had a bad experience. You have an inner sense of danger. You have an inner sense of, this is not quite what I should be doing. And you, of course, hopefully go the other way, which is necessary. You need to have those instincts. But you start exploring these train yards, which are massive, especially if you've ever been in one in like Chicago or Atlanta, San Francisco, Denver, these huge, expansive train yards that are literally the size of the city. You walk beside the city. Sometimes if you can get up into a skyscraper and look, you'll see the train yard, and it's as big as the city. It's huge, just gigantic. And as I learned, littered with Doberman pinschers and other animals that are eager to keep people like me from doing what I'm about to try to do. So one of my first rules of thumb was talking to the people that were out there and exploring the tracks. What are the first things you need to know? Well, you need a compass. You need to know what direction you're heading. And you need to know what trains you can jump. And I was always told to get on a train, like a freight train that has an open door. Once you get on that train, you take a rock and you wedge it in there so it won't shut on you. Because if it shuts on you, you could be parked for months. And as we've heard some of the recent horror stories of things that can happen to refugees that get trapped in non-opening containers, that can happen. So you got to prevent that. But 3 days waiting for a train to pass that's jumpable, you get willing to take anything that comes. So I was warned against coal cars. I was warned against grain cars. Not sure quite why. The coal cars, because when you go through tunnels, you can suffocate. The dust will accumulate in mountain tunnels and you'll suffocate. So that's scary, so you avoid that. But I'm sitting there 3 days later and I see this grain car go by. I'm thinking, great. So I have my guitar with me, a very heavy backpack. I'm running, throwing my stuff into this thing, and my stuff goes through, and this car is bottomless. So it ends up on the track. So you're like, ugh. So there goes some of your stuff. Luckily, the train's high enough to where the guitar was saved. Thank goodness. But, everything else is like strewn about. So you do your best and you learn as you go. See where we're at. And so then actually the gift, what you receive from doing it, from daring to do it, from going through the hardship of getting there is you see things that you can't see anywhere else. You can't see them on a road. You can't see them maybe by the sky, but you're not involved in it. You can't see it through any walking trek. It's carved through mountains. These are, once again, path of least resistance. These train tracks were built in old days the easiest way they could to connect the east to the west. So you're crossing bridges that you'd never see, landscapes you'd never see, gorgeous landscapes that are undescribable, just blow your mind. And that's the goal, payoff. Then of course the ultimate payoff is the Pacific Ocean for me. That's where I ended up. Traveled up and down the Pacific Ocean a little bit. You can see one of my homemade shelters that I built, stayed in, the view that I woke up to, and I did that for about 6 months as well, just traveling because I love the coast. So that was a wonderful experience. So the Wanderlust does pay off. Some people ask me why. I think that's a great question. For some, home is something that you run to. For some, home is something you run from. Not even necessarily for bad reasons. It's just a matter of resources and what you're looking for. For me, coming from a big family and limited resources, I wanted to know what was out there, what was available to me and my resources. So I chose to dig into my resources and find out what those were, push myself to that limit. Other than that, how do you know what you want unless you really kind of get out there and test your limits and find what your resources even really are?